So good afternoon, everybody. Today is Monday, September 26, 2022, here with episode 2 of Love Your Home with our home inspector. Today is Peter Bunai. Got your name pronunciation right this time, I hope, Peter. First Choice Home Inspections. And I really appreciate you taking this time again as we bring information to the community here in the Williamsburg area and the surrounding area. Anybody that is buying or selling a home, I want to bring them and we're bringing them information and education to help them avoid costly mistakes in the home purchase or the sale of their home. And this information is really, really helpful to be able to provide. So thank you for taking the time today. So Peter, you do home inspections all over the peninsula. We talked about your background last week and different, you've built a number of homes and you've been in construction and you have a passion and a love for homes. So today I thought it'd be great to actually take a few minutes, 10 minutes or so, to have you talk a little bit more about the home inspection that you do, because every home has so many systems. And when a buyer is coming in to buy a home, often they've had a chance to walk through the house and they've had a chance to see it, and you can kind of tell if something's good or not. And if something doesn't feel right, if a home doesn't feel right for a buyer, then they're probably not going to be interested in buying that house. But when a home feels right and it kind of gives you that sense that this is my home, this is something I want to make to be my home, and they've reached that emotional point of decision that this is something I really want. I can see my family growing up here, or I could see, whatever the decision factor that is involved for that individual, that's going to be the home that they're going to buy. But they've only had a chance to spend a few minutes in it, walking around, looking around. They're looking, and so they haven't had a chance to really get to know it. Now, in the contract, of course, we got this home inspection, and typically it's a contingency. It's a large part of the contract. But now we've got a detailed home inspection that you are going to be bringing to this buyer, and you are going to be going through this home, and you have a lot of systems that you're going to be diving into. And this is a huge educational opportunity for that home buyer. Now they get a chance to learn if they're able to be there for it, which I always encourage my home buyers to be on site with their home inspector. I get that some people have to rely simply on the inspection, but I always encourage my home buyers to be there on site with their inspector. Let me let you talk a little bit about the inspection that you do. Tell me about what you do. Tell me about the systems that you're looking at, and I'd like to have you go into how you do your inspection.
Well, when I'm talking to people, I always like to start with the context of home inspection, because I think people are coming to it from a lot of different places. Some people have been through home inspections before, some people none. Some people have talked with their realtors and they have, many different ideas. So there's two, I guess, main ideas that I really try and get out there about how to understand a home inspection. The first one being the context of the home inspection, which is what I think about is, how what we contain the home inspection in. And that I would define as saying that you have to understand that when we're doing the home inspection, the home does not belong to me, and it does not usually belong to the person that I'm inspecting it for. So everything that we're going to do is going to be somewhat modified by this, which is we're going to be a guest in someone else's home, and we're going to have to do everything as if we will as we are a guest in someone's home. And so that does limit the home inspection somewhat. But I think it's important to really get that out in the beginning and understand that, because a lot of people say, oh, well, could you do this or do this and this? And a lot of times, if you think about that context, then it'll answer itself. And also, when we're going around the home, obviously we want to be really gentle with everything. We're just going to be, those things that we test, we really just test by turning them on and off by all their normal controls. So we're going to be doing what a reasonable person would be doing inside the house to see if something works. So, sometimes something won't turn on, and there's this temptation to, oh, well, let's, try and find out what's wrong. But that, really gets a little bit beyond, because we're really not there to troubleshoot the home or to, do the in-depth analysis, because there's a lot of different systems that we want to get to. So again, the first thing that we want to understand is that context of we're guests in the home. The next thing that I would talk about that can also be a little bit limiting is that we want to find, and this is the basic of all of it, is we're obviously going to look for stuff basically that's broken, but we also want to understand what is reasonable that is a little bit worn out. And I think that's another place that people can get a little bit drawn in. They'll be in a 20-year home, and they'll be like, oh, there's a little, crack in the drywall. And if it's one that you kind of, maybe should understand that that's part of the wear and tear of the home, then that's probably something we're not going to be focusing on. So we want to be able to sort of differentiate what is wear and tear on the home from what is things that are actually broken.
Yeah.
And now, as a home inspector, we're going to have different ways to look for what is broken. For example, anything that's not functioning properly, obviously that's broken. We're going to list that. Anything that is, we say, significantly deficient, which is a way of saying that when we evaluate it overall, it's really just not good enough. It's probably not, like, it might barely work, but it's barely working. And so basically it's still broken. Another thing that we talk about is near the end of service life. So a lot of times in home inspections, we want to talk about how old is the roof, how old is the HVAC, because we also, in addition to the home, we want to give people an idea, well, how long, what are you going to be costs in the first 5 years? Like, people want to be able to figure out, what will it cost to move in here? Is anything I have to spend money on right away? Or is it, how long can I go without spending a lot of money? Or what do I need to do to be able to move in here? And then, so those, and the last thing that we're going to look at is for anything that's unsafe. So obviously things that are unsafe is things that, sometimes people say, maybe a code violation, but it's really more of anything that presents a danger to anybody. We just want to highlight that, and just to make sure we get that out and bring that out as well. Now, I realize that that's not really talking about all the different systems. But what happens is we're going to actually go through all the systems of the house, applying all of these principles to it. So again, the context, the understanding of how worn something is, and then looking at all the different ways something is broken. And really, we're going to go through the entire house, the whole functionality of it, looking for all of these things. Now, there's just two other things that I would add to this, and that's things that a home inspector, a good home inspector, can really bring to the home inspector. Like you said, you don't always have people attend, but if they do, one of the good questions that you can ask a home inspector is, how does this house compare to other houses of a similar age? Right. And why this is important is that the home inspector is never going to say, you should buy this house, you should not buy this house. They're never going to come close to that. But home inspectors do have a good idea of how this house stacks up against other houses of a similar age. You can tell when you go through a home if it's been, let's just say some homes look like they've been ridden hard and hung up wet.
Right.
Right. Other homes look like, you can tell if it's been a vacation home, like if it's really lightly used, and you can tell what's in between. So, you can get a really good sense. And also deferred maintenance. How much deferred maintenance is going on in the house? And also what kind of quality of work has been done in the house? Like, a good home inspector is going to be able to tell you, this is a homemade job. This is this is something that only professionals, they only had professionals in here doing the work. So this is all really solid information that a good home inspector is going to bring out of the home inspection. And some of this is stuff that you really don't necessarily put into the home inspection report, because that's going to be pretty much itemized entries of all the different things that are wrong, and then the things that they're supposed to be reporting on. So that general back and forth that you can have with the inspector if you're present at the inspection, that can be really, I think, very useful to people. And just one more thing that I would say is the place where a home inspector can really help is when you come across systems that are bad or are need repair. When you, let's say that you really, say you have a client who's really in love with a house, but there's problem X. A good home inspector should be able to explain the different ways that you can get that problem resolved. Not just, hey, you need to have an expert come in here, but what really is involved. And when you can help people understand what sort of time requirements, what sort of money requirements are involved, that really can help people to understand if that is a house they really want to stay with and work with, or if that is not a house that they want to stay with and work with.
That is great information, and that's why I think and feel like the home inspection process, and with a good home inspector, you're like yourself, the educational aspect of the home inspection is such a valid and so worthwhile. Typical home inspection that might cost $450 to $650. That is the best investment, even though it's a cost of a sense. It is a great investment in understanding your property. And when I love that you just gave all those explanations of the different so within each system in the house, you've got these different classifications of what their state of, how it's presenting. And I really like how you explained all of those kinds of things, because we say that a lot, where there might be language of nearing end of service life.
That's right.
And
yes.
that's one that kind of comes up very often, particularly on not new, but roofs and HVAC systems, because they're at their end of their serviceable life as they were built and designed. Doesn't mean that they've failed, doesn't mean that they're done with, but this is something that home buyer needs to give close consideration to in the overall design, if you will, or the way this system is made to last. It's going to need to have a plan to replace it, and putting that into that same kind of context. So I love how you explain those kind of contexts. And what was the other one? There was another one that was deficient, or you used another word.
The four things that inspectors are really required to bring out is not functioning properly, significantly deficient, near the end of service life, or unsafe.
Yeah. Okay. Unsafe. If it's unsafe, then that's something that a buyer really needs to know about that home. And sometimes that'll be a decision factor. I mean, by having that education, they now know what their next steps are. And of course, once we have the home inspection and you've put together your report, and there's a lengthy list of systems, and we'll talk about those systems in other calls, and how you inspect each of those kinds of things too, so that you can explain that. And I'm sure you'll get a chance to do. One of the things I'm really looking forward to, Pete, is when we get on a call where you can share your good, bad, and ugly pictures, because I know that'll be kind of fun to talk about in those individual systems. What kind of things you're looking at times, and I'm sure you've seen all kinds.
Yeah. One point on that, while we're talking about it, is that it's also good to understand that here in America, we don't have any guilds that are, people that are just builders. In America, anyone who wants to go to Home Depot or Lowe's is allowed to work on their home. And so you really get a very wide range of skills of people who are working on their homes. And some of them are quite skilled, and others, for whatever reason, whether they don't have the time or don't have the understanding that some projects just don't come out as well.
Yeah.
And it can really be hard to sort through that, because sometimes when you're looking at something that is just not, I guess my polite word for it is non-standard. When you're looking at something like this, you really have to try and say, well, you know, does it work like this? Is it going to last? You know, you have to try and apply all the same building principles to it and say, you know, I don't want to just discount stuff, but I also want people to know whether they're, you know, getting into something that's built like it's supposed to or not built like it's supposed to.
Right.
So
right.
Just thought I'd add that in there, that there's also what we look at is a very wide range of skills involved in home repair.
Yep. Good to point out. Good to point out. And I like that you can explain to somebody, you know, because not everybody knows. Not everybody has had the skill as you described when they're buying a home. So sometimes people have never worked on a home, and sometimes people are buying a home that has had a lot of work done on it that they're not going to understand. And I love that you can explain to them maybe some of the work that was done without, you know, being on the job site when it was actually performed. You can see the quality of that output that was put in there. And if it needs to be corrected, you're really great about explaining, you know, some of the process of correcting that where it's applicable, without trying to go into all the nitty-gritty details of what a specific handyman or contractor is going to do, because that gets into a whole nother level of skills that individual is going to have and so forth.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I love working on my own stuff. We're going to do it. We are a do-it-yourself kind of society, where
We sure are.
Home Depot, Lowe's, and these home improvement stores are built around that whole aspect of it. I think there's a lot of the what we conceive as the American dream of home ownership involves, you know, doing things to our home. I think anybody that looks at a home that's an existing home looks at, what can I do to make this home more suitable to myself? And sometimes that means making some changes, if not improvements, to that home. And what you're describing is sometimes people make changes or take on projects that don't come out quite the way we would have liked them to, and the home inspection can bring those out.
That's right.
And sometimes you're bringing out just the without getting into projects, but the condition of the home, the condition of the wear and tear, and so forth. Well, Pete, I know we've been on here for almost 15, probably closer to 20 minutes, and you have a vast amount of information that I'm looking forward to sharing with the world out here. So thank you again for taking the time, Peter Bunai. I'm going to get this pronunciation right. And First Choice Home Inspections. John Polson here with eXp Realty and the Memory Group here in Williamsburg. Glad to bring you information about home inspections here. And again, we're here to provide information for you in the community so that you can make smart decisions when you're buying a home. And if you have any questions at all about home inspections, or you have any questions really that are real estate related, please feel free to message through. There should be a button on this page that you can link to actually send a message to me, or you can leave a comment. And certainly there will be Peter's contact information will be on here. You can reach him directly as well. So Peter, look forward to continuing this conversation and having more information to share with the community out there. Thank you for taking the time with me today. Anything else that you want to add before we jump off?
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to more as well.
All right, sounds awesome. Well, listen, have a great Monday evening. I'm certainly sure that I will talk to you hopefully next Monday. In the meantime, look forward to a great week ahead. Hey, it's kind of crazy storm maybe coming this weekend, so it looks like we might finally get some rain. We need that a lot. So,
yes, we do. All right. All right, John, take care.
Have a great week. Bye.